We'll go ahead and get started, and I'll just make an introduction, and then my guests will take over for a little bit, and then we'll have some questions and wrap up within the hour or so. All right, so first off, I'll introduce Eddie Game. Eddie is an Australian based out of our office in Brisbane. He's a graduate from University of Queensland, where he studied under Hugh Possingham, one of the great scientists who really helped to create the modeling around eco-regional planning and conservation action planning, and the modeling that we all use as an underpinning for our work. So Eddie's been with the Nature Conservancy for 7.5 years, and is part of the Council of Scientists, I think, as Peter Kariba has christened it, and acts as our lead scientist for the region and really liaisoning with the rest of the organization. And many of you may also know Manuai. Manuai is from the island of Manus off the north coast of Papua New Guinea. Manuai's been with the Nature Conservancy for how long?
About 9 years.
9 years. 9 years. He is most famous, and I think justifiably so, for a dramatic series of adventures that he undertook a couple of years ago to spread the word about the impact of climate change on coastal communities across Melanesia. And it's a great story that's made a lot of the rounds, and it's fantastic and intriguing to think about that kind of commitment as well as that kind of creativity in our work. So I'm going to hand off to Eddie, and then Eddie will talk through a little bit of some of the work that we do around science in the region, and then we'll talk a little bit about Manuai and his adventures and next big adventures, and then we'll open for questions. So Eddie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Charles. And I'm only going to spend a brief time talking about science, kind of at an organizational level. We've had some changes recently, so I'm going to talk about those, and then about the role of science in the organization and Asia Pacific. So we call ourselves a science-based organization all the time. We hear that term, science-based. It's kind of a core value proposition. It's always near the top of reasons why people support the Nature Conservancy, is because we're a science-based organization. But what does that mean? That's not an easy answer to that. But I think, in my interpretation, advanced CV, is that a science-based organization, beyond holding nice equipment and looking sort of off into the distance, is a commitment to evidence. And that, if anybody asked me, what does it mean to be a science-based organization, I would say we have a commitment to evidence, a commitment to understand what evidence underpins our choices, the choices about where we work, the strategies we take, and a knowledge and understanding of what we don't know about where we currently stand, and a commitment to go and get that evidence. And I think that is a really key investor confidence proposition that we offer compared to many other organizations, is this commitment to provide evidence that underpins our work. Mm-hmm. So a commitment to evidence is for me what it means to be a science-based organization. But there are other metrics we use too. We have good stats as a science-based organization. We have nearly 600 people who are science trained, who have science as some aspect of their job, and that's pretty staggering if you stop to think about it, because there isn't many other organizations that aren't a government agency or a university that employ 600 scientists in any discipline. Think of it, even a big cosmetics or a chemical company, they rarely employ 600 scientists, and there's certainly no one in the environmental or conservation field employing that many people. So we really are kind of a science giant when it comes to our staff, and our outputs show that too. We routinely, Conservancy scientists publish somewhere near 200 papers a year. We publish books. We have extraordinary traffic on our science website. So we have Cool Green Science, our science website, gets more traffic than nature.org, our main website. We have over 1 million unique visitors a year to Cool Green Science. It's responsible for a huge amount of our media hits. Anyone working in our marketing and comms team will tell us that science is a great media attribute for us. And we have science leaders. Our scientists serve on major editorial boards, on government commissions, on head of NOAA, NOAA advisory group and things like that. So we really are recognized globally as a strong science organization. We have had some changes in science recently. No doubt a lot of that strength some of that strength can be attributed to Peter Kariva, who is, as most people I think will know, recently departed chief scientist. And we have a new acting chief scientist, Heather Tallis. Heather's been with TNC for, I think, nearly 4 years now, as a lead scientist focusing on people measures, people issues. But prior to coming to the Nature Conservancy, Heather was the chief scientist at the Natural Capital Project, which is a partnership between Stanford and WWF and the Nature Conservancy. So a terrific and very well respected scientist. So we're happy to have her stewarding science at the moment. And then I guess the other change is this group, the Science Cabinet, which always makes me think of some kind of cabinet with jars of curiosities, brains and pieces of anatomy in it. But that's the choice. Apparently Science Council was confusing, so we're a Science Cabinet. And these are the members of it. You can see on your screen. Peter Kariva is still going to remain the chair of that group, and he's going to remain an advisor at TNC, which is terrific news for us. He's one of the most well-regarded scientists in the whole conservation field. Heather is obviously on it, and then the 5 other lead scientists of the organisation. So Mike Beck, a lead marine scientist, Joe Fagioni, who leads our North America region science, Joe Kieseke, who leads the Science for Love of Lands team, and Jen Molnar, who's corporate sustainability. And we're lucky in the Asia Pacific region because a number of these folks work closely in AP. Joe Kieseke spent a lot of time working in Asia Pacific. Mike Beck, I think, got his PhD in Sydney, so long connections. And this Science Cabinet basically has the role of being sort of high-level representatives of science. We see our job as sort of being guardians, if you like, of that science-based tag, making sure that the Conservancy does what it needs to retain that. And that means making sure that we have the right kind of partnerships, the right kind of staff, and that as a collective we can come together to tackle big issues. So one of the projects that we're doing together as a cabinet is something we're calling 9 billion plus nature, which is a look at what the planet could look like if we're successful at our mission. And we see a population going up to 9 billion, but we're successful in navigating our relationship with the environment. And so we're really trying to see that as a kind of hopeful vision, but also one that underpins the choice of our global strategies, and that we can use as a case for why we work on the things we do. You see there's a few, on the screen there's a few kind of grey boxes next to that cabinet. We're really hoping this cabinet's going to expand in the near future. Because if you think about it, a lot of our work revolves around things like agriculture, economics, urban conservation, but we don't have leading scientists in that area yet. So part of our job as a cabinet is to recruit those people, and we're really excited to announce. I think Charles will know this, but probably not many other people. But at the board meeting last week, 2 of our board members made very substantial commitments. Roy Vagelos and Craig McCaw, commitments totaling $30 million to science at TNC, and most of that's going to fund science partnerships for the organisation, but also this cabinet of leads, and to recruit these new leads. So it's a tremendous sign for the Conservancy that at a time when a lot of other non-profits are really struggling to keep their science machine alive and keep it a core part of their business, we're doubling down on science. So in many ways we're bucking the trend of other big organisations when it comes to science. So just quickly, where does science happen in the organisation? Well, we have the Office of the Chief Scientist. We have about 20 folks in that, and we really see the role of the Office of the Chief Scientist as 3 things. One is to help manage and implement conservation by design, and we're going to hear a lot more about conservation by design in the near future. We've just had this 20th anniversary refresh, and for a lot of our history that was kind of the core DNA of science at the Nature Conservancy. And we think that this new refresh will allow it to be that kind of core DNA as well, to be something people can latch on and find their science in that. So the kind of pillars of conservation by design now really are related to evidence, related to the evidence we have that that the things we're doing are likely to work, so the theories of change we're building, the situation analysis we're doing, but also the evidence we're backing that up with through monitoring, through understanding data that other people have collected. And so that's a key role for the Office of the Chief Scientist, but we also hope that all scientists at TNC will find a place in conservation by design. And the other key things that happen in the Office of Science Communications, things like Cool Green Science I mentioned, the Science Impact Project, which our Asia Pacific staff have been great participants in, really elevating the skills of our science staff, and science partnerships, which is something that's going to be key for the Nature Conservancy going forward. The breadth of our work is so large, the sort of expertise we need is evolving so rapidly. We could never hope to own all of that expertise as staff. So increasingly we're going to depend on partnerships with universities, with government agencies, with other non-profits to deliver that science. So we see sort of setting up good long-term partnerships as key to science delivery. And the other places science resides in the organisation are in the global teams. The freshwater team and the lands team and the marine team all have great science staff. We have some regional staff, myself, people like Ali Green, Lizzie McLeod, Rod Salm on the marine team, and that's true in other regions too. But then the great core of our staff is in the operating level, the business unit level, and that's absolutely going to be the case going forward. One of the things we're looking at as a cabinet now is what kind of expertise we need to make sure we can do justice to the new conservation by design. And we already know some places where we need to strengthen. We could do with a lot more spatial analysis and a lot more GIS expertise. That's great for both projecting what we're going to do, but it's also great for managing the data that underpins our partnerships. So, and more social science expertise is another place. And just briefly, I'll finish with science in the Asia Pacific. We have great science staff. We have 49 people by my count that are scientists and have science as part of their role. But one of our challenges, if you press again, CV, is that the number of people who actually have science as the main part of their role, as opposed to managing projects and stuff, is a much smaller number of people. And I actually think that's okay. That's probably about the right number. Increasingly as an organisation and in the region, I think it'll be less about specialist science staff and more about scientists who can create and manage good partnerships to deliver the science we need. So it's as a nice segue to Manuai, I thought I'd highlight some science that he'd been involved in that was kind of the ideal science in my mind. Manuai and Rick led some science looking at whether the small marine protected areas that they're establishing around Manus would actually have fish spillover benefits for that community and for the other communities. And it was really robust, rigorous science done in partnership with Woods Hole and French government, but underpinned by our local relationships and our knowledge of context. So, if I had to pick an example of what sort of ideal science, that would be a piece of it. So I'll pass to Manuai now.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a snapshot of PNG.
A snapshot of PNG.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
So we'll play a video
Okay.
first.
All right.
Okay, Papua New Guinea tropical forest hosts an incredible biodiversity, and its marine habitats are part of the Coral Triangle, home to an incredible 76% of the world's coral species. Papua New Guinea is home to unique species that found nowhere else on Earth. To help reduce the environmental impacts on the environment from logging activities, to protecting reefs, fisheries, and mangroves, the Nature Conservancy has been working in Papua New Guinea for 20 years, helping communities in developing sustainable future for the land and waters that surround the community for survival. So TNC promote participatory research, gender inclusion in development and planning, building the capacity of the locals, and promoting science-based to inform conservation and management in a community.